The Metropolitan Museum of Extraterrestrial Artifacts stood as a testament to humanity's peculiar place in the galaxy. 50 years after first contact, Earth had found itself not the conquering or conquered species of old science fiction, but something far more mundane, a galactic backwater, a curious footnote in interstellar politics. The grand building with its vast foyer and climate-controlled microzones had become humanity's consolation prize curator of relics from civilizations that had mastered the stars when humans were still discovering fire. Trey Mallory, age 34 night security guard, was perfectly content with this arrangement. He had mastered the art of just meeting expectations with a precision that bordered on talent. His supervisor described him as reliably unremarkable, a phrase Trey had privately considered having printed on business cards. Tonight, like every night for the past 7 years, Trey made his rounds through the silent corridors, lit by Earth's faithful moon and distant stars through the museum's massive skylights. The quiet suited him. No aliens visited at this hour, no scholars, no tourists. Just Trey, his flashlight, and the soft glow of display cases containing artifacts from 100 worlds. Night 1622. Trey mumbled to himself, checking his watch. In precisely 4 minutes, he would take his scheduled break, unfold his well-worn crossword puzzle book, and debate whether tonight was a blueberry or chocolate waffle night in the staff kitchen. Life was predictable, manageable, safe. From the shadows near the Hall of Elder Civilizations, Dr. Elizabeth Wren watched Trey with narrowed eyes. The curator had been observing him for months, noting his habits, his reliable mediocrity, his complete lack of ambition. Her gaze drifted to the center of the hall, where a humanoid suit of armor stood in a specially designed containment field. Unlike the other artifacts which gleamed under careful lighting, this one remained deliberately dim. The small plaque beneath it offered minimal information. Caliburn Agus, Elder Civilization Artifact, Function Defensive, Age Est, 40,000 plus standard years, Status Dormant. What the plaque didn't mention were the rumors that had followed the Caliburn across 17 star systems, how it had rejected every being who had attempted to claim it, how entire species had gone to war over its potential power, only to find it inert and unresponsive. For millennia, it had remained unclaimed, passed from curator to collector to museum, a legendary artifact that refused to reveal its secrets. Dr. Wren smiled thinly. Only she knew what the Caliburn truly waited for. At precisely 2:17 a.m., 4 things happened simultaneously. Every light in the museum went out. The emergency backup system failed to engage. The climate control system reset, sending a momentary rush of unfiltered air through the building. And deep in the Hall of Elder Civilizations, a faint blue glow began to pulse like a heartbeat. Trey, midway through a particularly challenging crossword clue, cursed and reached for his flashlight. Museum blackouts weren't unprecedented, but they were rare and strictly regulated. Protocol demanded an immediate check of the most sensitive exhibits. "Control, we've got a power drop in Section 4. He reported into his radio, already moving down the corridor toward the Elder Hall. "Backup systems are unresponsive. I'm checking critical artifacts now." Only static answered him. Frowning, Trey tried again. Nothing. The corridor ahead seemed longer in the darkness, his flashlight beam cutting a narrow path through the gloom. As he approached the Elder Hall entrance, Trey noticed something strange. A soft blue light pulsing from within, casting elongated shadows that danced across the floor. It matched no security or display lighting he recognized. Museum protocol clearly stated that in the event of unexplained phenomena, security personnel should immediately retreat and contact external emergency services. Trey knew this because he'd written that very protocol 3 years ago, after the Jovian moss incident had gotten loose and consumed half the paleobotany wing. Trey firmly believed in following rules, especially his own rules. He stepped into the Elder Hall anyway. The blue glow emanated from the center display, the Caliburn Agus. The armor, previously a dull metallic gray, now pulsed with cobalt light that seemed to flow beneath its surface like liquid. The containment field had failed completely, leaving nothing between Trey and the ancient artifact. "That's not supposed to happen," Trey whispered, reaching for his radio again. The armor turned its featureless helmet toward him. Trey froze flashlight beam, trembling slightly on the moving artifact. In 7 years of museum security, he'd encountered 6 cases of spontaneous artifact activation. All had been minor: a singing crystal that activated during humidity shifts, a levitating seed pod that occasionally sprouted during full moons. Nothing like this. The Caliburn stepped forward, its movements fluid, despite millennia of dormancy. It tilted its head, as if curious, and raised a hand toward Trey. A beam of light shot forth from its palm, scanning him from head to toe. A mechanical voice spoke in a language Trey didn't recognize, then switched to English. "Compatibility assessment, 97.3%. Symbiosis parameters optimal. Initiate bonding sequence." "Wait, what?" Trey backed away. "I don't consent to any bonding." The armor moved with impossible speed. One moment it stood 3 meters away. The next it had wrapped itself around Trey, unfolding and reforming to encase him completely. He felt no pain, only a strange tingling sensation as the living metal flowed over his skin, adjusting perfectly to his form. His mind, flooded with information, sensor readings, system, diagnostics, power levels in a language he somehow understood despite never having learned it. "Stop!" Trey shouted, his voice strange and resonant inside the helmet. "Get off me!" "Caliburn Aegis online." A voice whispered directly into his mind. Bearer identified Trey Mallory. Compatibility exceptional. Beginning neural synchronization. Trey's panicked protests died as he felt the armor settling into place, growing lighter by the second, until it felt no heavier than his regular uniform. The flood of information slowed to a manageable trickle as the suit apparently recognized his inability to process it all at once. "Trey, what's happening in there?" Dr. Wren's voice carried from the hall entrance, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what was occurring. Before Trey could answer, a new alarm blared, not the museum's standard security alert, but a high-pitched wail he'd never heard before. Through the Caliburn's enhanced auditory sensors, he detected multiple approaching vehicles outside the museum. Dr. Wren rushed forward, her normally composed expression replaced by urgent intensity. "We need to leave, now." "What's going on?" Trey demanded, surprised to find he could move normally, despite the armor encasing him. "What did you do?" "What I've spent 60 years planning," she replied, pulling a small device from her pocket and activating it. The museum floor beneath the display case slid open, revealing a hidden passage. "The Caliburn has chosen you, which means we have perhaps 10 minutes before every faction in the Galactic Council arrives to claim you willingly, or as spare parts." "Claim me? I'm a security guard, not an artifact." "You are now both," Dr. Wren said, pushing him toward the passage. "And if you wish to remain alive rather than dissected in an alien laboratory, you'll follow me immediately." As if to emphasize her point, a thunderous crash echoed from the museum's main entrance. Trey's enhanced hearing picked up voices, speaking at least 3 different non-human languages, all with the unmistakable cadence of military commands. "But my backup," Trey began. "Already neutralized," Dr. Wren said grimly. "You're alone, Trey, except for me." That was precisely what worried him. Nevertheless, with unknown hostiles converging and no way to remove the armor that had claimed him, Trey followed the curator into the darkness below the museum. The passage led to a small, elegantly appointed spacecraft, hidden beneath the museum's foundation. Dr. Wren moved with the confident precision of someone who had rehearsed this escape countless times, activating systems and preparing for launch, while Trey stood awkwardly in his new armor, trying to make sense of what had happened. "You planned this," he accused. "You knew the armor would activate for me." "Not you specifically," Dr. Wren replied, without looking up from the control console. "But someone like you, Human, unremarkable, harmless. The statistical probability suggested. Harmless, Trey interrupted, surprisingly offended. Suggested that the Caliburn would eventually select a bearer from Earth's population. I simply facilitated the meeting. She finished her pre-flight sequence and looked up at him. Though I must admit its choice of a museum security guard is unexpected. Yeah, well, being forcibly bonded to alien tech wasn't on my bingo card either, Trey snapped. Get it off me. Impossible. The Caliburn chooses its bearer for life, or until it decides otherwise. Dr. Wren's expression softened marginally. But don't worry, from everything we've learned about elder technology, it won't harm you. Quite the opposite. A warning light flashed on the ship's console. Proximity alert, Wren muttered. Company sooner than expected. The ship's external camera displayed 6 armored figures converging on their hidden hangar. Their design varied wildly. One appeared to be composed entirely of crystalline segments. Another rippled like liquid mercury, but all moved with clear purpose. Council enforcers, Dr. Wren explained, accelerating their launch sequence. The Vanguard. Their diplomatic corps and extraction teams won't be far behind. Meaning, what exactly? Trey asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer wouldn't improve his evening. Meaning that in approximately 30 seconds, representatives from at least 6 advanced civilizations will be fighting over which gets to take you apart to study the Caliburn. A new figure appeared on the monitor, rushing toward their ship with surprising speed for its bulky frame. Unlike the others, this one's armor was patchwork, a mix of technologies from different worlds cobbled together with remarkable ingenuity. It signaled frantically toward their ship. Protocol Officer Ken, Dr. Wren murmured. Interesting. To Trey's surprise, she opened an external communication channel and lowered the entry ramp. The mismatched figure slipped aboard, just as the ship's engines engaged, sealing the hatch behind it. Are you insane? Trey demanded. You just let one of them in. Correction. The newcomer said its translator, rendering a slightly mechanical, but understandable English. I am letting myself out. It removed its helmet to reveal a face that reminded Trey of a humanoid axolotl, pale with delicate gill-like structures, framing large, expressive eyes. Protocol Officer Ken, Galactic Council, and you are making an extremely illegal departure with a Class S restricted artifact. He is the artifact, Dr. Wren replied calmly, as their ship burst from its concealment, rocketing skyward with acceleration that would have crushed them without the craft's inertial dampeners. Ken's eyes widened, focusing properly on Trey for the first time. The Caliburn. It chose a human. The protocol officer made a gesture Trey didn't recognize, something between a salute and a ward against evil. Impossible. Evidently not, Dr. Wren said as Earth's atmosphere thinned around them. And now we have a decision to make, Officer Ken. The Council factions will be scrambling ships as we speak. If you intend to claim the Caliburn for your masters, I should jettison you now. Ken's expression shifted through several unreadable emotions before settling on what Trey thought might be resignation. The Harland Ascendancy would indeed order me to secure the artifact at any cost. However, the officer glanced between Trey and Wren. Scientific curiosity temporarily outweighs protocol adherence. I will defectively aid your flight. For now. You mean defect, Trey corrected automatically. That too, Ken agreed. The ship shuddered as something struck its shields. On the external monitors, 3 sleek pursuit craft had already locked onto their position. Wonderful, Dr. Wren muttered, banking their ship hard toward the dark side of the moon. Vex Imperium. They don't waste time. The Vex are notoriously efficient. Ken agreed, strapping into one of the passenger seats. We will need to reach a jump point before their main battle group arrives. Battle group, Trey echoed weakly. Dr. Wren's hands flew over the controls. Engaging stealth systems and preparing for superluminal jump. This might get uncomfortable. Before Trey could ask what uncomfortable meant by interstellar standards, Space itself seemed to fold around their ship. His perception twisted reality, stretching like taffy before snapping back into focus. Earth and its pursuers vanished, replaced by the star-streaked tunnel of faster-than-light travel. Only then did Trey notice that something within the Caliburn had changed. The armor had responded automatically to the jump stress, adjusting its systems to compensate for the spatial distortion. More disturbingly, it seemed pleased somehow, a sensation of satisfaction rippling through the neural connection he was only beginning to understand. "Where are we going?" he asked, trying to focus on practical concerns rather than the alien consciousness now sharing his nervous system. "Nexus Station," Dr. Wren replied. "We need supplies, information, and a better ship for long-range travel." "The Council has jurisdiction at Nexus," Ken pointed out. "All 12 factions maintain embassies there." "Precisely why it's perfect," Dr. Wren said with a thin smile. "They'll be looking for a stealthy approach, not a brazen arrival at the galaxy's busiest trading hub. Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight." Trey fought down rising panic. Less than an hour ago, his biggest concern had been choosing between waffle toppings. Now, he was fleeing Earth with an alien armor, bonded to his nervous system, a mysteriously well-prepared museum curator, and a defecting alien protocol officer. "I think," he said carefully, "that someone should explain what the hell is going on." Dr. Wren and Ken exchanged glances. "The short version," Dr. Wren began, "is that you're wearing the most sought-after weapon in the known galaxy, created by a civilization that vanished 40,000 years ago. Every spacefaring race has legends about the Caliburn Agus. Some believe it can reshape worlds. Others claim it holds the access keys to the Elder Repository, the complete technological and cultural archive of the galaxy's first advanced civilization. The long version," Ken added, "is considerably more concerning and involves at least 8 interstellar conflicts fought over rumors of its whereabouts." "And it picked me why?" Trey demanded. Dr. Wren shrugged. "Elder technology operates on principles we've barely begun to understand. But the Caliburn has rejected bearers from every known species for millennia. Until now. Until you." "Great," Trey muttered. "So I've got the galaxy's most important hand-me-down, and everyone wants it." "Not the armor," Ken corrected solemnly. "You, the Caliburn has chosen. According to all historical records, it cannot be removed from its bearer, except by the bearer's death, or the armor's choice." The implications settled heavily on Trey's shoulders. "So I'm stuck with it." "Or it with you," Dr. Wren said, her expression unreadable. "Either way, we need to reach the Elder Outpost before the Council factions locate us. Only there might we find answers about why the Caliburn chose a human and what it expects you to do with its power." "I don't want power," Trey protested. "I want predictable shifts and crossword puzzles and waffle debates." For the first time, Dr. Wren laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her severe features. "The universe rarely considers our preferences, Trey Mallory. But take heart, in my experience, those who don't seek power are precisely the ones who should wield it." Their ship continued its superluminal journey Earth, and its familiar comforts receding with every moment. Trey gazed out at the streaking stars, feeling the Caliburn's subtle adjustments as it continued integrating with his systems. Within his mind, alien knowledge waited just beyond comprehension, tantalizingly close, yet frustratingly obscure. He had never wanted adventure, never sought importance. Yet, here you are, the Caliburn whispered into his thoughts. "We have much to learn from each other." Trey closed his eyes and sighed. "I'm still thinking about waffles." "What are waffles?" the armor inquired with genuine curiosity. It was going to be a very long trip. Nexus Station appeared first as a glittering smudge against the void, then resolved into an impossible structure, a massive torus 15 kilometers in diameter, rotating sedately to generate gravity in its outer rings. Countless ships of every imaginable design docked at its extended arms or moved in careful patterns around its periphery. At the station's core, A captured planetoid provided raw materials and anchor mass. Home to 17 million sentients from over 300 worlds, Ken explained, as Trey stared. The closest thing our fractious galaxy has to neutral ground. Dr. Wren guided their ship toward an unremarkable docking bay on the station's shadowed underside. We'll need to disguise you, she told Trey. Can the Caliburn modify its appearance? Before Trey could admit his complete ignorance of the armor's capabilities, he felt it responding to the implied request. The metallic surface rippled and reformed, shifting from its distinctive ancient styling to something resembling a modern environmental suit complete with what appeared to be a commercial brand logo on the shoulder. Impressive, Ken murmured. It understands contextual needs. It's scanning everything, Trey replied, uncomfortable, with the constant data stream flowing through his awareness. Languages, technologies, cultural markers. It's like having an encyclopedia downloading directly into my brain. Use it, Dr. Wren advised, as she completed their docking procedures. The Caliburn chose you for a reason. Let it help you navigate this new territory. They disembarked onto Nexus Station with identities provided by Dr. Wren as a xenoanthropologist, Ken as a cultural liaison, and Trey as a human adaptive technology tester. The forged credentials wouldn't withstand serious scrutiny, but they only needed to move through the station long enough to acquire passage to the Elder Outpost. The sensory assault nearly overwhelmed Trey as they entered the main concourse. Thousands of beings moved in every direction, speaking dozens of languages simultaneously. Aromas from 100 worlds, some enticing, others actively nauseating, wafted from food vendors. Gravity shifted subtly as they walked, adjusted for the various physiological needs of the station's diverse inhabitants. Stay close, Dr. Wren murmured. The bazaar level has the contacts we need. They descended via a gravity tube to a sprawling marketplace, where the line between legal and illicit commerce blurred considerably. Ken grew visibly uncomfortable gill structures, flattening against its neck. Protocol violation indicators everywhere, the officer muttered. My training insists I report at least 7 major infractions visible from this position alone. Your defection is already the 8th, Dr. Wren replied dryly. Besides, She stopped abruptly, pulling them into the shadow of a massive shipping container. Council enforcers, 3 o'clock. Trey spotted them immediately. 4 figures in the distinctive armor of the Vex Imperium, moving with methodical precision through the crowd. Their helmets featured enhanced optical arrays that swept the area in overlapping patterns. They're scanning for the Caliburn's energy signature, Ken whispered. Trey felt the armor responding before he could form a coherent thought, its power emissions shifting, adapting, masking themselves behind randomized patterns. It's hiding, he whispered, surprised. Smart, Dr. Wren nodded. But we should still avoid direct contact. There's another route to... Whatever alternative path she planned to suggest became irrelevant as a 5th Council enforcer stepped from behind a nearby stall, its scanner aimed directly at their position. Unauthorized Elder technology detected, it announced, voice rendered flat by translation. Surrender for processing. Trey froze, but the Caliburn had other ideas. Without conscious direction, the armor propelled him forward with shocking speed. His fist, now encased in a momentarily visible gauntlet, connected with the Enforcer's scanner, shattering it. His leg swept the Enforcer's feet from beneath it in a perfect combat maneuver Trey had certainly never learned. Basic Lorathi takedown sequence, the armor supplied helpfully in his mind. The commotion drew the attention of the other Enforcers. Pedestrians scattered as the squad activated weapons that crackled with energy. Run! Dr. Wren shouted, already sprinting toward a maintenance access door. Ken hesitated only briefly before following. Trey wanted to run as well, but the Caliburn had seized control of his motor functions, dropping him into a defensive stance as the Enforcers converged. I don't know how to fight, he protested aloud. I do, the armor responded simply. What followed was both terrifying and exhilarating. The Caliburn moved Trey's body with machine precision, ducking energy blasts, and countering with strikes that disabled, rather than killed. He was dimly aware that the armor was being careful. It could have easily destroyed the enforcers, but chose restraint. When the last enforcer fell temporarily paralyzed by a precise strike to its neural cluster, the Caliburn released control back to Trey. He stood panting amid the aftermath, shocked by what had just happened. Your heart rate is elevated, administering calming agents. The armor noted, and Trey felt a wave of artificial serenity wash over him. That's cheating, he muttered, but couldn't deny the utility as his panic subsided. A slow, clapping sound drew his attention. A large, four-armed being leaned against a nearby pillar, watching him with unmistakable amusement. Most entertainment I've had all cycle, the being said in surprisingly clear English. Not often you see Vex enforcers handled so efficiently. I'm not looking for trouble, Trey said cautiously. The being laughed a rumbling sound that vibrated the deck plates. Trouble's looking for you, friend. Those weren't standard enforcers, they were Vex Special Diplomatic Corps. The kind they send when they're trying to be subtle. One of its four hands gestured to the fallen squad. This will bring the heavy response teams. Who are you? Trey asked, feeling the Caliburn analyzing the newcomer and finding no immediate threat. Pulse, the being replied. Mechanic information broker, occasional troublemaker. It tilted its massive head. And you're wearing something that doesn't belong in this time period. Interesting. Before Trey could respond, Dr. Wren and Ken reappeared from a service corridor, both looking harried. We need to move, Dr. Wren said tersely. Station security has... She stopped, noticing Pulse. Oh, hello. Dr. Wren. Pulse greeted with a familiarity that surprised Trey. Your timing remains impeccable. And you've brought a protocol officer. It made an elaborate gesture that caused Ken to flush a deeper pink. How delightfully irregular. You know each other, Trey asked. We've had occasional business dealings, Dr. Wren said diplomatically. She swindled me out of a genuine Paraxian star chart, Pulse corrected good-naturedly. But all is forgiven, especially now that I see what you're up to. It focused on Trey again. The Caliburn Aegis, if I'm not mistaken. Long way from home, isn't it? You recognize it? Trey was surprised. Even disguised. Pulse tapped one massive finger against its temple. Cybernetic enhancements. I see energy patterns, not just surfaces. And that particular pattern, legendary. It straightened up to its full 3-meter height. You need extraction fast transport and absolutely no questions. I can provide all three. For what price? Dr. Wren asked suspiciously. Pulse's expression shifted to what might have been a grin on its alien features. A favor from the bearer of the Caliburn worth, more than all the currency on this station. It extended one giant hand to Trey. Do we have a deal? Trey hesitated, but the Caliburn radiated what felt strangely like approval. With few other options and station security undoubtedly closing in, he clasped the massive hand. Deal. Pulse's extraction turned out to involve a maintenance shaft, 2 illegal security overrides, and a harrowing crawl through what Trey strongly suspected was a sewage processing conduit. The fast transport waited in a restricted docking area, a sleek vessel that looked like it had been cobbled together from at least 6 different ship designs. Meet the improbability, Pulse announced proudly as they boarded. Fastest cobbled-together mess in 3 sectors. She's ugly, but she'll outrun anything the Council sends after us. A touching endorsement, Ken muttered, eyeing the ship's exposed wiring with professional concern. The interior was surprisingly spacious, though cluttered with mechanical parts, outdated navigation charts, and what appeared to be a collection of antique Earth movie memorabilia. A translucent cloud of shifting colors hovered near the pilot's console, resolving into a vaguely humanoid shape as they entered. Mist, Pulse introduced. Navigator extraordinaire and gas-based lifeform. Doesn't talk much but plots jump trajectories like nobody's business. The cloud pulsed once in acknowledgement. Trey felt a strange tickling sensation as the Caliburn attempted to analyze the gas being. Unknown physiology, fascinating, it commented in his mind. We need to reach the Elder Outpost, Dr. Wren said, getting straight to business. Can you get us there? Pulse whistled low. The outpost. That's not just off the maps, it's practically myth. Pocket dimension if the stories are true. They are, Dr. Wren replied firmly, and I have the coordinates. Pulse and Mist exchanged what might have been a glance, though it was hard to tell with the latter's amorphous form. Well then, Pulse said, breaking into what was definitely a grin this time. Let's make some history. As they prepared for departure, Trey found himself drawn to a viewport. Nexus Station spread before him in all its impossible vastness, a testament to what diverse civilizations could build when they chose cooperation over conflict. Somewhere in that maze of habitats and markets, Council forces were undoubtedly organizing a more substantial pursuit. Having regrets, Dr. Wren asked, joining him. About 1 million, Trey admitted. But mostly I'm wondering why this is happening to me. I'm nobody special. Perhaps that's precisely why the Caliburn chose you, she suggested. The Council races have spent millennia fighting over power. Maybe it was waiting for someone who didn't want it at all. Before Trey could respond, the ship's systems hummed to life around them. On the command deck, Pulse engaged with controls seemingly designed for its multiple limbs, while Mist swirled through holographic navigational displays. Better strap in, Pulse called back. First jump in 2 minutes and we've got company arriving. The external monitors showed 3 Council vessels converging on their position weapon systems active. No standard departure clearance for us, Ken observed dryly. The improbability shuddered as Pulse executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy both physics and common sense. The pursuing ships fell behind, momentarily confused by their erratic path. Jump calculations complete, Pulse announced. Hope your stomachs are strong. Space twisted around them, the familiar stretching sensation of superluminal travel, intensified by whatever unconventional drive system the improbability employed. Trey's vision blurred reality itself, seeming to protest the ship's passage through dimensions it wasn't meant to traverse. Through it all, the Caliburn maintained perfect homeostasis within his body, preventing the spatial distortions from affecting him too severely. When reality snapped back into focus, they were somewhere else, entirely orbiting a gas giant with swirling amber clouds, surrounded by a debris field that might once have been a moon. First jump successful, Pulse declared proudly. Only 17 more to go. Trey groaned. It was definitely going to be a very long trip. The Caliburn had other ideas about how Trey should spend the journey to the Elder Outpost. While Pulse plotted their erratic course through seldom-used jump points, the ancient armor initiated what it called basic synchronization training, a process Trey quickly discovered was neither basic nor particularly comfortable. Stop fighting it, Dr. Wren advised, watching him struggle through exercises designed to harmonize his movements with the armor's capabilities. The neural pathway development is essential. Easy for you to say, Trey gasped, trying to maintain a complex stance, while the Caliburn fed him sensory information from 6 different input channels simultaneously. You're not the one with alien tech rewiring your brain. They had stopped at an uninhabited jungle world for repairs after their 11th jump, the improbability having developed what Pulse called dimensional hiccups in its drive system. While the mechanic and Mist worked on the ship, Dr. Wren had insisted Trey use the opportunity for intensive training. Ken observed from the edge of the clearing they'd selected the protocol officer's expression, unreadable, as Trey repeatedly failed to integrate the Caliburn's enhanced perceptions with his human reflexes. Perhaps a different approach, Ken suggested finally. Human brains process information sequentially, not in parallel arrays. The Caliburn was designed for beings with more advanced neural architecture. It chose him, Dr. Wren countered. It must be adaptable to human physiology. It can hear you, Trey thought irritably, and felt the armor's amusement ripple through their connection. After another failed attempt at coordinating 6 sensory streams while executing a defensive pattern, Trey collapsed onto the spongy, violet ground cover. "This isn't working." To his surprise, he felt the Caliburn's agreement. Alternative approach. It suggested in his mind, and suddenly, the overwhelming data streams reduced to a manageable trickle. Trey gasped as the pressure eased. "It's filtering, prioritizing." Dr. Wren leaned forward with interest. "The armor is adapting to you." Not just adapting, Trey realized as new understanding flowed through the neural link. Teaching. It's showing me how to focus on what matters in each situation. He stood, finding his balance newly improved. "Let's try again." This time, rather than flooding him with all available data, the Caliburn highlighted only the relevant sensory inputs for each movement. When Trey needed to track an imaginary opponent's position, enhanced spatial awareness activated. When he needed to execute a precise strike, tactile sensitivity increased in his hands and arms. By the time Pulse announced the ship was ready for departure, Trey had made more progress in 4 hours than in the previous 2 days of training. "Remarkable," Dr. Wren murmured, watching him execute a flawless evasion sequence. "The Caliburn is meeting you halfway." Ken seemed equally impressed. "No record exists of the armor making such accommodations for potential bearers. It has always demanded complete adaptation to its systems, never the reverse." "Why me?" Trey asked silently, as they walked back toward the improbability. The answer came not in words, but in impressions, a sense of balanced perspective, of seeing clearly, without preconception of potential, unbound by ambition. Qualities the armor had found lacking in more advanced beings. As they prepared for the final jumps to the Elder Outpost, Trey noticed Dr. Wren watching him, with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Throughout their journey, she had maintained a professional distance, focusing on practical matters, rather than personal connections. Now, something in her manner had shifted. "You're catching on faster than I expected," she said, when they found themselves alone in the ship's small galley. The Caliburn made the right choice. "You still haven't told me what happens when we reach the outpost," Trey pointed out, "or why you've spent 60 years planning this." Dr. Wren's composure slipped for just a moment, revealing something ancient and tired behind her eyes. "The Elder Repository contains the complete knowledge of a civilization that mastered technologies your people can barely comprehend. Not weapons alone, but sciences that could transform worlds, extend lives, restore environments thought permanently damaged." "And you want me to, get this knowledge for Earth?" She laughed softly. "Oh, Trey, I want something far more radical than that." She leaned closer. "I want you to ensure it's shared equally among all sentient species. The Council races have hoarded and weaponized lesser technologies for millennia, maintaining power imbalances that benefit the few at the expense of the many. Including humans," Trey realized. "Your people were deliberately kept isolated after contact classified as a developing species, and denied access to advancements that could have solved your most pressing problems." Dr. Wren's expression hardened. The repository could end such inequities forever, but only if accessed with the right perspective. Before Trey could process these implications, the ship's alarms blared. They rushed to the command deck where Pulse was engaged in what appeared to be a high-stakes evasion maneuver. "Harland battlecruiser," the mechanic explained tensely. "Appeared out of nowhere. They must have predicted our course." On the monitors, a massive vessel bristling with weapon emplacements had positioned itself directly in their path. Smaller craft were already launching from its bays. Boarding parties, Ken identified, face-paling. "Harland extraction teams. They're not here to negotiate." Mist swirled in agitated patterns around the navigation console, projecting alternative routes that all ended in capture or destruction. "We need a distraction," Pulse muttered. "Something unexpected." The Caliburn stirred within Trey's awareness, offering a strategy so bizarre he almost dismissed it immediately. Yet, as he examined the armor's reasoning, He found its logic sound, if wholly unconventional. "I have an idea," he said slowly. "But you're all going to think I'm insane." 20 minutes later, the improbability drifted apparently powerless in space, its systems showing massive failures across all sectors. The approaching Harlan vessels slowed, suspicious of the too-easy prey. "They're scanning us," Pulse reported from the minimally powered bridge. "Good thing the Caliburn's emissions are masked by the engine core's radiation." In the ship's cargo hold, Trey completed final preparations for what was indeed the most insane plan he'd ever considered. The Caliburn had formed a sealed environment around him, its outer surface now reflective enough to serve as a crude solar sail. "This is suicide," Ken protested one final time. "Even with the armor's protection, the math is problematic." "The Caliburn understands spatial physics better than our computers," Dr. Wren countered. "If it says this will work, I believe it." "That's not actually reassuring," Trey muttered, but positioned himself by the airlock nonetheless. Pulse's voice came through the communication system. "Harlan flagship is moving into tractor beam range. It's now or never, folks." Trey took a deep breath. "Open the airlock." The cargo bay depressurized with explosive force, blasting Trey into space like a projectile. Using the Caliburn's enhanced reflexes, he deployed the reflective sail surface at precisely the right moment, catching the system's star's photonic pressure. The armor made microscopic adjustments, angling the improvised sail to accelerate Trey along a curving trajectory that would take him directly into the Harlan flagship's sensor blind spot. Probability of success, 76.3%. The Caliburn calculated helpfully. "That's worse odds than you gave me earlier," Trey protested as he hurtled through vacuum. "I adjusted for your tendency toward panic." The armor replied with what felt suspiciously like humor. The Harlan vessel grew rapidly in Trey's vision, its massive bulk designed for intimidation as much as function. At the last possible moment, he collapsed the reflective sail and activated the magnetic grapples the Caliburn had formed on his hands and feet. He struck the ship's hull with bone-jarring force, the armor absorbing most of the impact as the magnets secured him in place. "External sensors detect no alarm response," the Caliburn reported. "We remain undetected." Step 1 complete. Trey subvocalized, knowing the armor would transmit to the improbability. Moving to Phase 2. Using the Caliburn's enhanced strength, Trey crawled across the flagship's hull toward a maintenance access point identified in Ken's briefing. The armor extended a specialized appendage from his index finger, interfacing with the exterior lock's security system. 48 million possible combinations, the Caliburn noted, beginning sequential testing. Trey held his position, acutely aware of how exposed he was on the vast hull. If any of the ship's external scanners happened to sweep his position. Access achieved. The armor announced after what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes. The hatch slid open and Trey pulled himself inside as it resealed behind him. The maintenance tube pressurized automatically. Once atmospheric levels normalized, Trey proceeded as planned, making his way toward the ship's communications array. According to Ken's intelligence, the Harlan flagship would be coordinating the entire pursuit fleet, disrupt its communications, and chaos would follow. He encountered no resistance as he navigated the narrow maintenance passages. These areas were designed for automated repair drones, not organic personnel. When he finally reached the communication hub's access panel, he paused to confirm the next phase with his distant companions. "I'm in position," he whispered. "Ready for the signal." "Acknowledged," Dr. Wren's voice replied through the Caliburn's internal communication system. "Initiating diversion in 3, 2, 1. On cue, the improbability systems surged back to life. The supposedly crippled ship executed a series of impossible maneuvers, weapons firing with pinpoint precision at the smaller Harlan vessels. Alarms blared throughout the flagship as it responded to the sudden threat. During the confusion, Trey accessed the communications array. The Caliburn interfaced directly with the system, uploading a virus pulse had designed specifically for Harlan protocols. Within seconds, the flagship's entire communication network began broadcasting what appeared to be classic Earth banjo music at maximum volume on all frequencies. Phase 2 complete. Trey reported, unable to suppress a grin as he imagined the chaos on the command deck. Retreating to extraction point. The return journey through the maintenance tubes was considerably more challenging. The ship had gone to full alert status, and security teams were sweeping all sectors. Twice, Trey had to flatten himself against the ceiling as repair drones rushed past below. When he finally reached the designated airlock, he found a nasty surprise, waiting two Harlan security officers in full combat gear, apparently stationed there as a precaution. Threat assessment, moderate. The Caliburn evaluated. Recommend non-lethal incapacitation. Before Trey could decide how to proceed, the officers' communication devices erupted with deafening banjo music. In their distraction, the Caliburn propelled Trey forward. 2 precise strikes later, both officers lay unconscious, and Trey had access to the airlock controls. "Hope you guys are in position," he muttered as he cycled the airlock. "Because I'm coming out hot." The moment the outer door opened, Trey launched himself into space once again. The improbability appeared exactly where it should be, cargo bay open and ready to receive him. His trajectory calculated by the Caliburn and mist working in tandem brought him through the opening with meters to spare. As artificial gravity reclaimed him, Trey collapsed onto the deck in a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "I can't believe that worked," he gasped as the bay repressurized. Pulse's delighted voice came over the intercom. "Banjo's absolute genius. They'll be struggling to purge that from their systems for days." With the Harlan fleet in disarray, the improbability made its final jumps toward the Elder outpost. Each transition grew more difficult as they approached what Dr. Wren called the dimensional fold, the pocket of altered spacetime that concealed their destination. The final jump was unlike anything they had experienced before. Reality seemed not merely to stretch, but to fracture around them, colors and sensations impossible to describe flooding through the ship. Even the Caliburn struggled to maintain Trey's biological stability during the transition. When the universe finally reassembled itself around them, they found themselves in a place that defied conventional understanding. The sky featured no stars, only swirling patterns of energy that illuminated a landscape of impossible architecture buildings that seemed to extend into dimensions beyond the visible three structures that reconfigured themselves as they watched. At the center of it all stood a perfect pyramid of what appeared to be solid light, pulsing in a rhythm that matched the Caliburn's own energy signature. "The Elder outpost," Dr. Wren whispered, her voice reverent. "After all these years." Ken seemed equally awestruck. "The stories didn't do it justice." "Well," Pulse declared after a stunned silence, "I suppose this makes the banjo stunt worth it." As they prepared to disembark, the Caliburn stirred within Trey's awareness, a sense of anticipation of homecoming flowing through their connection. Whatever awaited them in that impossible pyramid, the armor believed it was where they needed to be. For once, Trey found himself in complete agreement. The Elder outpost accepted their presence with neither resistance nor welcome. As they approached, the light pyramid sections shifted and reconfigured, forming an entrance sized perfectly for their party. Inside, the architecture continued its impossible configurations, corridors that somehow connected spaces that should have been physically separate chambers that appeared larger inside than their external dimensions suggested. "This violates at least 17 physical constants," Ken muttered, scientific curiosity temporarily overriding protocol training. The Caliburn guided Trey confidently through the labyrinth, responding to patterns and signals imperceptible to human senses. Dr. Wren followed close behind her expression, suggesting this wasn't her first visit to such a place. Pulse and Mist brought up the rear, the mechanic uncharacteristically silent, while the gaseous navigator swirled in patterns that might have indicated either fascination or anxiety. They eventually emerged into a vast central chamber, dominated by what appeared to be a suspended galaxy, a perfect miniature replica of star systems and celestial phenomena rotating slowly in the air before them. "The repository index," Dr. Wren said softly. "A map to all elder knowledge." As Trey approached, the Caliburn fully activated for the first time since their initial bonding. His armor shifted from its disguised form back to its original configuration, now glowing with internal light that matched the chamber's ambient energy. The miniature galaxy responded certain star systems, illuminating in patterns that corresponded to symbols appearing across the Caliburn's surface. "What's happening?" Trey asked, feeling the armor engaging systems he hadn't known it possessed. "The trials begin," Dr. Wren replied cryptically. "The repository doesn't surrender its knowledge without testing the seeker's intentions." Before Trey could ask what that meant, 3 doorways materialized around the chamber, each pulsing with a different colored light. "3 trials," Ken observed, "as in the ancient texts." Dr. Wren nodded. "Empathy, creativity, and curiosity, the virtues the elders valued above all others. Trey must face each challenge alone." "Wait, what?" Trey protested. "Nobody said anything about trials." "We are prepared," the Caliburn assured him silently. "These challenges were designed for us." "Great, so you've done this before." "No, but we were made for this moment." With that less than reassuring thought, Trey approached the first doorway, a passage glowing with gentle amber light. As he stepped through the opening, sealed behind him, cutting him off from his companions, the amber trial chamber transformed around him, becoming a perfect simulation of an alien ecosystem. Crystalline plants stretched toward an artificial sun, while creatures Trey had never seen before moved through complex social patterns. In the center of this environment, a single being huddled in obvious distress, a juvenile of some unknown species separated from its group. "The empathy trial," the Caliburn explained. "We must assist without disrupting the natural order." Trey moved cautiously toward the distressed youngster, conscious that the local wildlife might perceive him as a threat. The juvenile creature noticed his approach and emitted a series of clicking sounds that the Caliburn instantly translated as fear and confusion. Drawing on the armor's database, Trey positioned himself in a non-threatening posture and attempted to reproduce a calming sound pattern. The creature responded hesitantly, its fear diminishing slightly. "It is lost," the Caliburn analyzed. Its herd moved beyond the crystal forest, but this one became disoriented by the light patterns. "So we need to help it find its way back," Trey reasoned. "But I'm guessing just picking it up and carrying it would be disrupting the natural order, right?" "Correct. The solution must respect its agency and development." After several false starts, Trey discovered he could use the Caliburn to subtly alter the refraction patterns in nearby crystals, creating a path of familiar light signatures that the juvenile could follow. Rather than imposing his will on the creature, he provided the means for it to find its own way home. As the young alien finally rejoined its herd beyond the crystal forest, the environment dissolved around Trey, returning him to a neutral chamber with a single doorway leading forward. First trial completed. The Caliburn confirmed. Empathy demonstrated through respect for autonomy rather than imposition of help. The second trial, creativity, proved more abstract. Trey found himself in a chamber filled with fragmented machinery, none of which appeared functional or complete. A simple holographic message hung in the air: "Create harmony from discord." For hours, Trey experimented with different configurations, attempting to assemble the fragments into a cohesive whole. The Caliburn offered technical specifications, but no solutions, insisting this challenge required Trey's unique perspective. Frustrated after multiple failures, Trey sat amid the mechanical chaos and sighed. "It's impossible. There aren't enough compatible pieces to build anything functional." "Perhaps functionality is not the goal," the armor suggested. Trey considered this. "Harmony doesn't necessarily mean practical utility," he realized slowly. "It means balance, relationship." With renewed purpose, He began arranging the fragments not into a machine, but into a kinetic sculpture, a balanced mobile, where each broken piece complemented the others in a dynamic system. None of the components worked as originally intended, but together they created something entirely new, a harmonious whole greater than its disparate parts. As the final piece settled into place, the sculpture began to rotate gently, catching light in mesmerizing patterns. The chamber acknowledged his success, dissolving into the neutral state with the final doorway now accessible. The curiosity trial proved the most challenging yet. Trey entered a featureless white room, with no apparent challenge puzzle or objective, just empty space extending in all directions. "Hello," he called, his voice vanishing without echo. "What am I supposed to do here?" The Caliburn remained silent, apparently as confused as Trey. After waiting for anything to happen, Trey began to explore, though there seemed nothing to explore. The featureless expanse continued without variation, no matter how far he walked. "This is pointless," he muttered after what felt like hours. "There's nothing here." As he voiced his frustration, a thought occurred to him. What if that was precisely the point? What if the trial was to question the apparent emptiness itself? Acting on instinct, Trey knelt and placed his hand on the white surface beneath him. "Show me what's really here," he requested. The Caliburn activated in response, extending its sensory capabilities beyond normal parameters. Suddenly, Trey could perceive what had been invisible before: complex patterns of energy flowing beneath the surface, information highways connecting vast data structures. "It's all an illusion," he realized. "The emptiness is just a surface layer." As his curiosity drove him to explore these hidden systems, the environment began to respond, revealing increasingly complex layers of reality that had been present all along. The trial wasn't about solving a puzzle, but about questioning the nature of perception itself, never accepting the apparent limitations of any situation. When the final chamber dissolved, returning Trey to the central repository room, he found his companions waiting anxiously. 3 hours, Pulse announced. "We were about to mount a rescue." It felt like days, Trey admitted, exhausted but exhilarated. Dr. Wren stepped forward, studying him closely. "You completed all 3 trials." "Was there ever any doubt?" Trey asked, only half joking. Before she could answer, the miniature galaxy in the center of the chamber expanded, suddenly surrounding them with stellar projections. A figure coalesced from light particles, a being of indeterminate species, wearing armor, strikingly similar to the Caliburn. "The Artificer," Dr. Wren whispered. The holographic being spoke in a language Trey didn't recognize, but the Caliburn translated effortlessly. "Bearer of the Caliburn Aegis," the Artificer addressed Trey. "You have proven worthy of the choice. The repository opens to you." The starfield around them brightened, individual systems, now selectable, each containing vast archives of elder knowledge and technology. "What you seek you may claim," the Artificer continued. "But know that power without wisdom brings only destruction. Choose carefully what knowledge you unleash." Trey felt the weight of the moment, the responsibility the Caliburn had chosen him to bear. Every spacefaring civilization had sought this opportunity, many willing to destroy others to obtain it. Now the choice was his alone. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Pulse rushed to a communication panel that had materialized on the chamber wall. "We've got company," the mechanic reported grimly. "Major company. Both Harland and Vex battle groups have breached the dimensional fold. They're converging on the outpost." Ken moved to the panel, confirming the threat with professional precision. 17 capital ships, multiple landing craft. They'll breach our position within minutes." The Artificer's hologram showed no reaction to this development. "What is your choice?" "Bearer. Will you claim the weapons of the Elders to defend yourself? Will you take the technologies that grant dominion over matter and energy? Or will you leave with nothing, maintaining the balance that has existed for millennia?" Trey felt possibilities rushing through the Caliburn systems, schematics for technologies that could reshape worlds, weapons that could shatter fleets, defenses that could make him virtually invulnerable. The armor vibrated with potential, ready to download whatever knowledge he selected. Dr. Wren watched him silently, her expression carefully neutral, despite the approaching threat. This was the moment she had spent 60 years working toward. Trey's choice would define her success or failure. He thought of Earth isolated and vulnerable, of the Council races hoarding technological advantages, of cycles of dominance and subjugation that had defined galactic politics for thousands of years. "Neither option is right," Trey said finally. "Taking nothing leaves the status quo of inequality. Taking power for myself or Earth just changes who sits at the top of the hierarchy." The artificer tilted its head. "What alternative do you propose?" "You. Reconfiguration." Trey said, the idea forming as he spoke. "The repository knowledge should be available to all species equally distributed, based on need rather than power. No race should control technologies that could benefit all." "Impossible," Ken interjected. "The Council would never agree to such terms." "Then we don't ask permission," Trey countered. "We change the rules of the game entirely." He stepped forward, placing his hand on the galactic representation. The Caliburn fully synchronized with his nervous system for the first time, their consciousnesses merging into a singular purpose. Through this perfect union, Trey initiated a protocol buried deep within the armor's programming, a contingency the Elders had created but never deployed. The repository responded, the entire outpost thrumming with energy, as systems dormant for millennia activated simultaneously. The galactic map expanded, then fragmented copies separating and dispersing like seeds in the wind. "What have you done?" Dr. Wren asked, awestruck. "Distributed access." Trey explained, feeling the process unfolding through his connection with the Caliburn. "The repository is replicating and dispersing itself across the galaxy. Each race will find access points, calibrated to their level of development, offering technologies that address their most pressing needs." "But the weapons," Ken said. "The defenses." "Locked behind trials, similar to what I faced," Trey explained. "Available only to those who demonstrate they'll use them ethically. The Elder knowledge is being transformed from a winner-takes-all prize into a shared resource." The chamber shuddered as the first Harland and Vex forces breached the outpost's outer defenses. Warning signals flashed across the control panels. "Very idealistic," Pulse commented nervously. "But it won't help us much in the next 5 minutes when those battle groups arrive." The artificer's hologram, which had been observing silently, now stepped forward. "The bearer has chosen wisely. The sanctuary protocol is engaged." Throughout the outpost, ancient defense systems awakened. The pyramid structure reconfigured, energy barriers materializing to repel the invading forces. On the external monitors, Trey watched as Council vessels found themselves unable to penetrate these defenses, not destroyed, but firmly rebuffed. The outpost was never meant to be a weapon, Dr. Wren realized. It was a safeguard, a means of ensuring knowledge would be shared rather than hoarded. The Elders foresaw the possibility of their knowledge being used for domination, the artificer confirmed. The Caliburn was created to find a bearer who would choose differently, who would recognize that true power lies in equitable distribution, not consolidation. As the defense system stabilized, a new crisis developed. Harlan forces had managed to deploy ground teams before the barriers fully engaged. Armed squads now moved through the outpost's lower levels, fighting their way toward the repository chamber. "We need to evacuate," Pulse urged. "The improbability is prepped for emergency departure." "Go," Trey agreed. "Get the ship ready. We'll be right behind you." As Pulse and Mist rushed to prepare their escape, Trey turned to Ken. "You should go with them. Your people will consider you a traitor after this." The protocol officer hesitated. "My entire career has been dedicated to maintaining the existing order. What you've done changes everything." "Sometimes that's necessary," Trey said gently. After a moment's internal struggle, Ken straightened with new resolve. "I will remain to assist. Protocol exists to serve life, not constrain it. Perhaps it's time for new protocols. Internal alarms indicated the Harlan forces had reached the level below them. They had minutes at most before the invasion force breached the repository chamber. "They're after you," Dr. Wren told Trey. "The Caliburn is still the most valuable artifact in the galaxy, regardless of the repository's distribution." Then we need a diversion, Trey decided. Looking around the chamber, he spotted what appeared to be an ancient musical instrument. In one of the display cases, something resembling an ornate banjo. "And I think I know just what to use." With the Caliburn's help, Trey quickly mastered the alien instrument's basics. He established a connection between it and the outpost's communication systems, the same ones he had disrupted on the Harlan flagship. "Get to the rendezvous point," he instructed Dr. Wren and Ken. "I'll keep them busy and meet you there." "This is extremely unwise," Ken protested. "Probably," Trey agreed. "But sometimes the most unexpected strategies work best." As his companions reluctantly departed, Trey positioned himself near the chamber's main entrance and began to play. The instrument produced sounds no human banjo could match, resonating with the outpost's crystalline structure and amplifying through the communication network. When the Harlan forces breached the chamber moments later, they found a single human in ancient armor, playing an impossible melody that somehow disrupted their weapons' targeting systems and scrambled their neural implants' calibration. In the confusion, Trey slipped past them, the Caliburn enhancing his speed and agility as he raced through the outpost's reconfiguring corridors. Every junction seemed to shift just in time to block his pursuers while opening his path forward. He reached the rendezvous point as planned, finding the others already aboard the Improbability. As he sprinted up the boarding ramp, the last of the Harlan forces appeared behind him, energy weapons charging. "Go!" Trey shouted as he cleared the threshold. "Get us out of here!" The ship lurched into motion pulse, executing a series of impossible maneuvers as they fled the outpost. Behind them, the pyramid of light pulsed one final time, before seemingly collapsing in on itself, not destroyed, but folded back into its pocket dimension now inaccessible to those who would misuse its power. Yet the repository's knowledge had already been dispersed across the galaxy, beginning a transformation that would reshape civilization itself. As they navigated the dimensional fold back to normal space, Trey felt the Caliburn settle into a quieter state, not dormant, but peaceful. Its primary mission accomplished it now, adapted itself more fully to its bearer's needs and preferences. "So what happens now?" Trey asked, collapsing into a seat on the bridge as the stars of normal space reappeared around them. "Now," Dr. Wren said, "everything changes. The Council will be in chaos as repository access points appear across the galaxy. Power balances that have existed for millennia will shift overnight." "They'll blame us," Ken added, "particularly you, bearer." "Then we'd better make ourselves useful," Trey decided. "If knowledge is being distributed based on need, someone should help ensure it's used properly." Dr. Wren smiled a genuine expression that transformed her severe features. "I was hoping you'd say that." In the days that followed as they made their careful way back toward more populated systems, news reached them of the changes already unfolding. Council emergency sessions had been called. Repository access points had indeed appeared on hundreds of worlds, offering solutions to each civilization's most pressing problems. Clean energy for polluted worlds, medical technologies for species facing extinction, agricultural advances for those experiencing famine. Earth, to everyone's surprise, had received not weapons or starship schematics, but comprehensive atmospheric restoration technology and sustainable energy systems, exactly what the planet needed most. 2 weeks after their escape from the outpost, they docked at a minor trading station to resupply and gather intelligence. There, they discovered that the Council of 12 had undergone a radical reformation. With technological advantages, rapidly equalizing the old power structures had proven unsustainable. A new Council of 13 had been proposed with representatives chosen based on ethical standing, rather than military might. "They're looking for you," Pulse informed Trey, after returning from an information-gathering mission. Not to arrest you to offer you the 13th seat. Me, Trey laughed incredulously. I'm a security guard. You're the bearer of the Caliburn, Dr. Wren corrected. The one who opened the repository to all. Like it or not, you've become a symbol of a new approach to galactic governance. Ken, who had been analyzing council communications, nodded agreement. They're calling it the Mallory Doctrine, the principle that knowledge should be distributed according to need rather than power. Some factions are resistant, but most recognize the inevitable shift in progress. And what about you? Trey asked the protocol officer. Won't your people consider you a traitor? Ken's expression shifted to what might have been a smile on its alien features. Actually, I've been appointed Harland Ambassador to Earth. It seems my defection has been retroactively reclassified as forward-thinking diplomatic initiative. Convenient, Trey observed dryly. Politics, Ken agreed with a shrug. In the months that followed, a new galactic order slowly emerged. The repository knowledge distributed, according to Trey's reconfiguration, fueled advancements across hundreds of worlds. Earth finally joined the interstellar community as an equal partner, rather than a curiosity or resource. Dr. Wren revealed her final secret. She was, in fact, the last living elder who had taken human form to guide the Caliburn to its intended bearer. With her mission completed, she took on the role of educator, helping species throughout the galaxy understand and implement the newly available technologies ethically. Pulse and Mist, delighted by the chaos and opportunity the new era presented, established an interspecies cultural exchange program that quickly became the galaxy's most popular entertainment channel. Their signature show, Banjos Across the Cosmos, became an unlikely hit. And Trey, despite his initial reluctance, he eventually accepted the council position, becoming Professor Mallory, human representative in the reformed galactic government. The Caliburn remained bonded to him, though it had reconfigured itself into a less conspicuous form that resembled an elegant suit with subtle metallic accents. He still grumbled about the responsibilities, still missed his crossword puzzles and waffle debates. But as he stood before the assembled representatives of 13 civilizations, the man who had once mastered the art of just meeting expectations found himself setting new standards for interspecies cooperation and ethical governance. Never expected to be here, he confided to the Caliburn during a quiet moment between council sessions. Yet, here you are, the armor replied with what Trey now recognized as affection. We have much yet to learn from each other. Trey smiled, feeling the gentle hum of the ancient technology that had chosen him not for his exceptional qualities, but for his ordinary ones. His capacity for empathy, without condescension, creativity, without domination, curiosity, without exploitation. The galaxy transformed around them, but the lesson remained the same. True guardianship emerged not from seeking power, but from honest humility and empathy. The armor that had rejected every alien had found its perfect match in a human who had never sought greatness, and in doing so had changed the course of galactic history.